Hey, it's Tim Gaspar, candidate for City Council CD3. I hope all is well. I hope your day is going well. It's Friday right now, looking forward to the weekend. Wanted to talk a little bit about the issues going on with the city's budget crisis. So you probably saw in the news we're about $1 billion in the hole, which is a lot of money, and it leaves everybody asking the same question: how exactly did we get here? So it's really pretty simple at the end of the day. Just like when any business goes broke, it's as simple as the expenses were higher than our revenue. At the end of the day, that's what the issue is. But of course, there's a lot of things that go into that. Why is our income lower as a city? And why are our expenses higher? And I want to talk about one of those items today that you're probably hearing a lot about in the news, and that is our expenses tied to liability payouts. So our liability payouts for the city of Los Angeles last year were $320 million when we budgeted about $87 million. So that's a big difference. That $87 million that the city budgeted for liability payouts, that's the same amount that we budgeted over the past 5 years, which is really silly because liability lawsuits as a whole, whether it be for a city or individuals or businesses, have just about doubled over the past 5 years, and verdicts are much, much larger than they were 5 years ago. So we certainly did not budget enough in that area. What I want to talk about specifically today, though, is these individual payouts, some of the larger ones, so you can see what they actually are as a taxpayer, because as a taxpayer, I know I'm pretty upset about it, and I want to see what you think. So I want to talk about a few of these right now. When you're looking at the newspapers, when they're talking about the liability payouts, a lot of times what they'll say is, liability payouts, and a big part of them is LAPD for police brutality, but then there's not a lot of detail. And so I want to talk about a few of the specific LAPD cases, what the payouts were, and what the actual situations were. So first one I want to talk about is the Jesse Murillo case in Canoga Park. And so this was a $25 million payout for a police shooting in Canoga Park in which a man died when officers shot him. And so the newspaper articles that I looked at, they didn't have a whole lot of information in regards to what actually happened. In some articles it just said Jesse Murillo did not have a gun, and that's all it said. When the reality is there was a lot more to it. So I pulled up the district attorney investigation from the shooting, which is a lot more detailed than any newspaper article. Thankfully, this was put together by Jackie Lacey and not Gascon. Jackie Lacey was an amazing district attorney. Gascon, not so much. So a few of the pieces I wanted to go over. The situation started when Murillo got into a fight with his family members at a barbecue. So he gets into a fight, he assaults his mom, he assaults his uncle, then he puts on a gas mask and he comes out of his room carrying a knife and carrying a hammer, and assaults his, I think it was his uncle on the front lawn. So he's assaulting his uncle. One of the family members calls 911. The police show up. When the police show up, again, this guy's wearing a gas mask and he's carrying a knife and a hammer at the time. He jumps over the wall and to escape the police. So he jumps over the wall. The police call for backup. The backup shows up, and they spot him in an alley. And at this point, he's gotten rid of the knife and he's gotten rid of the hammer. The hammer's actually in his pocket. But he's carrying what is essentially like a 2 foot long tire iron. So long story short, he runs at the police officers with the tire iron, again, this giant like metal bat, if you will, raised above his head like this. And this is the part that I think is important. So they tell him to stop, they tell him to drop the knife. They think it's a knife at the time because it's dark. But still, this is something that a couple hits, and it would definitely hurt, if not kill you. When he's 50 feet away from the officers, he starts lunging directly at the officers. And these officers have just pulled up, they just get out of the car, they got their guns drawn. He's 50 feet away from the officers, he lunges at them. When he gets to 22 feet from the officers, which is really close, after they've already told him to drop the weapon, they then shoot him. One of the officers shoots 2 times, the other one I think was also 2 times. And he runs a little bit further to the side of the squad car, collapses. He was alive at the scene, but ultimately he passed away. So obviously a very, very tragic circumstance. Perhaps Mr. Murillo was going through some sort of mental episode. Any situation where somebody passes away is obviously awful, and the family obviously went through a lot of pain. That all being said, I don't see the reason there that the city would have to pay $25 million, because the $25 million, that's our taxpayer money. And I just want to put that in perspective real quickly. That's $25 million that went to this family. For every $1 million, you can hire 10 to 12 LAPD officers, 8 to 10 firefighters. $1 million pays for one of the fire trucks that you see, the engine pumpers, and almost pays for an entire hook and ladder truck. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those numbers momentarily. A couple of the other cases I wanted to mention real quickly. One was the Costco shooting that you might have heard about, where there was a Costco officer that got assaulted or said he got assaulted by somebody who was mentally ill at the food sample line. We've seen people get pretty excited there. He gets hit in the head, he falls to the ground, he draws his weapon, and he ends up shooting this person that he said attacked him. He killed that guy, a bullet went through. That person actually hit one of their parents. It was a terrible, terrible situation. LAPD found that it was not justified, and the family collected $17 million, the family of the person that was shot and killed. $17 million. This is an awful, awful situation. And again, LAPD said it was not justified. Here's the thing. When the shooting happened, the shooter, he was not working at the time. He was an off-duty officer. He had a weapon on him, but he was off-duty. So why are we as taxpayers on the hook for that $17 million for something that happened while somebody was off-duty? That doesn't apply to most other lines of work, so it doesn't seem like something that's really fair to us taxpayers. You're going to have to pay $17 million for an incident that happened while an employee was, again, not working at the time. And the last one I'll mention was also tragic. These are all tragic situations. You might remember that there was a pursuit that ended at Trader Joe's. The Trader Joe's, I think it was in Echo Park, or Silver Lake, excuse me. And the guy that's getting chased jumps out of the car. He immediately starts firing at officers. And the officers, almost on impulse or reaction training, they fire back at him. And tragically, one of those bullets hits one of the employees at Trader Joe's, and that employee's killed, which is just an awful, awful situation. Just the epitome of being, wrong place at the wrong time. And the family of that Trader Joe's employee collects $9.5 million. Again, somebody passing away in an incident like that is absolutely awful. But in reality, the responsibility for this situation really should lie with the person that was being chased by the police that created this entire situation in the first place. Not the police officers who are trying to arrest this guy, trying to protect lives. Should you say, yeah, they should not have fired back, they should have ducked behind a wall? Hindsight's always 20/20, and when you're being shot at and there's all these things going on, I think that is a really unfair way to judge the LAPD. And again, it's another example where I don't think taxpayers should be asked to pay almost $10 million for something that was, again, really an unavoidable situation by the police, and the responsibility really lies on the criminal that created the situation in the first place. So I'm going to wrap this up. There are some other judgments that were paid, but I don't want to bore you with a 20-minute video. But just to put this in perspective real quickly, and I think this is the biggest point, it was $320 million paid for liability payments. I want to put that in perspective real quickly. $320 million in a single year would pay for 3,200 police officers, or 2,560 firefighters, or 266 hook and ladder fire trucks, or 355 of the fire engine, which are ones that have the pumps without the ladder on top. So as taxpayers, that's an enormous amount of resources that are being given to folks. By the way, 40% of which or so is going to the attorneys. That's a really important piece too. It's just not something we can afford as taxpayers at the end of the day. I'm an advocate for creating a new law in Sacramento that will cap the amount of payouts that a municipality like Los Angeles can give. Because if this continues, this is going to bankrupt our city, and all of us taxpayers, and especially the folks that have a pension with the city, they're the ones that are going to lose, and a handful of attorneys are going to benefit. And that's just not fair to the residents of Los Angeles. So that's it for today. Hopefully that was helpful in some regard, and have a great rest of your day and rest of the weekend. Thank you.